Freshman Senator John Fetterman continues to mock the very people who helped him get elected in the Senate in the first place. This time, he did so in the context of an interview with Politico. In fact, the piece published by Politico is titled, "John Fetterman isn't the politician you thought he'd be, and he doesn't care." The Pennsylvania Democrat has some thoughts to share on Biden, the left, and James Carville too. Now, for the purposes of this discussion, I'm gonna mostly focus on what he has to say about Biden insisting on running for re-election, even after he promised to only serve one term, and how Biden happens to be an incredibly vulnerable candidate if the election, general election of course, indeed ends up being a rematch between Donald Trump and Biden himself. Now, with that said, let's get to the details of what he had to say. Now, in the piece, Politico reporter Holly Otterbein asks Fetterman to comment on Biden's campaign and how they haven't even announced any battleground staff in the state of Pennsylvania, the state that Fetterman, of course, is a senator in. And the question was, should the campaign be more built out in the swing states at this point? And here's how Fetterman responds. "I don't give anybody advice unless on fashion." Okay, and I do know, all I do know is that the president will win Pennsylvania. And I do believe if he wins Pennsylvania, and I believe he will be a second-term president. Now, the polls don't look so great for Biden out of Pennsylvania. We'll get to that in just a moment. But after that, Otterbein follows up by mentioning how things have actually gotten a lot worse for Biden since the last time they chatted, with Trump now ahead in many polls. In fact, a Times Siena College poll shows that Trump is actually beating Biden in most battleground states, including Fetterman's state of Pennsylvania. So if you take a look at Nevada, Trump is up by 10 points. Arizona, Trump is up by 5 points. Pennsylvania, Trump is up by 4 points. Georgia, Trump is up by 6 points. Michigan, Trump is up by 5 points. Wisconsin is the outlier here, where Biden is up by 2 points. And in response to that, Fetterman said the following: "That doesn't really matter. There's a whole lifetime in politics between now and next November as well. I'm not worried about that. And I'm very vocal about this too, while there are Democrats that are being very critical about the president." Then he declared, quote, "I'll use this as another opportunity to tell James Carville to shut the F up. Like I said, my man hasn't been relevant since grunge was a thing." I still enjoy grunge. "And I don't know why he believes it's helpful to say these kinds of things about an incredibly difficult circumstance with an incredibly strong and decent and excellent president. I'll never understand that," he says. Now, Carville, of course, is he's a longtime Democratic strategist. And he is concerned that Biden is a weak candidate to put up against Donald Trump. He's worried that Biden will lose to Trump. He is concerned about that. And Fetterman's basically telling him, okay, ignore the polls and shut the F up. Okay, what do you think, John?
I don't understand why so many people seem to think that it is way worse to acknowledge reality than to just let a bad situation exist. It's like so many people seem to think like if you criticize Biden, he'll fall apart and then we'll truly be doomed. Like, if you are saying, hey, we've got so much time, man, we've got so much time. Okay, then let's make sure that we use that time well. Like, if we're gonna freak out, it seems like now would be a good time to do it, rather than later. Freaking out in April seems unwise. And it's not like he's defensive about Biden in a minor way. And he's responding to a question of, somebody's like, Biden hasn't done a single thing. And he's like, hey, that's not fair, he's a decent, excellent guy. They're just saying, like, shouldn't he have campaign infrastructure in swing states that he's currently trailing in? And you're gonna like snap at the interviewer of that? That's such a basic, fair question to ask.
It is, but the good news is that the Democratic Party and the DNC learned a lot from the failures of 2016, and so they're repeating them now.
100%.
Like, what are we gonna hear next? That Biden doesn't want to do any campaigning in the battleground states?
I don't like. It's not even Carville isn't some like crazy like leftist or we've disagreed.
He's not
with
a progressive
many times.
Exactly.
But he has followed. He's still capable of reading polls, And yes, it's a year away for the election, but I'd really rather be up by 4 than down by 4 at this point. And when you couple that with, it's not like, it would be one thing if Biden was in like day 90 of like a national bus tour, and it's like people are criticizing him like he's trying, man, he's trying. I honestly have no idea what Biden is up to. I could not tell you 5 things he is promising for his second term. And I follow the news every day. And I don't feel like I'm super unfair to Biden. I try to give him credit where credit is due, but at this point, I don't even know where it's due because he's a non-entity. And part of that is his fault and the DNC's fault because they've decided that he can't be bothered, inconvenienced with a primary. And so they've effectively made the primary illegal in multiple states. So you're gonna have even less discussion of Joe Biden.
Super anti-democratic, especially when these actions are taken on behalf of a president who is campaigning against Trump by saying that Trump is a threat to our democracy. Just let that sink in for a second. Finally, I have to comment on just this turn that Fetterman has taken. Look, it's one thing if Fetterman has a disagreement with progressives on an issue here and there. That's normal, and I don't think it's right to jump down someone's throat because there's a minor disagreement. However, Fetterman is now like taking on this persona of mocking progressives and essentially brushing them off. Like they're an annoyance. But keep in mind that these are people who worked really, really hard to get him elected. And so they did that based on what Fetterman was campaigning on. He was campaigning on economic justice. He was campaigning as this outsider that was going to go against the status quo that is pushed upon us by the Democratic establishment. And then he turned out to be, not only part of the Democratic establishment in terms of his ideology and his actions, but in some cases even worse, right? Because he has this whole demeanor of like, I'm double deuce, like deuces, like toward the progressives. And I don't know how that's gonna bode for him when he tries to get reelected. That's 6 years from now, so it's gonna take some time. Right?
It's 4.
4 years from now. That's right. He got elected.
3 years from now.
It's been 3 years already. Senators have 6-year terms.
2022. It's not this. It's not this election. It's not the next election. It's the one after that.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So there's some time until that happens. Senators serve 6-year terms. But the one thing I will say is that it's politicians like Fetterman that lead to people checking out of politics altogether. When you think about what paved the way for someone like Trump, it was a politician like Barack Obama who was one person when he was campaigning and someone entirely different after he got elected. He campaigned on hope and change. He campaigned on economic justice. He campaigned on, anti-forever wars, anti what the Bush administration was engaging in the Middle East. But then he got elected and he expanded those wars. Okay, he got elected and he didn't bail out homeowners who were being foreclosed on. He bailed out Wall Street. And so that kind of lie to the American people and the very people who helped him get elected led to absolute disdain toward our democratic process. And this is a really dangerous time to engage in this kind of behavior and activity when an increasing number of Americans are really starting to question whether our democratic process really means anything at all, whether it's worth protecting at all. It hasn't really done much for them, so why are they gonna go out of their way to try to maintain and protect it? That is dangerous. So Fetterman, aside from offending progressives, is actually doing a lot of damage to our democratic process and Americans' faith in our democracy. And that's the main problem I have with him. Simply lying to people to get elected and then turning on them as soon as you're sitting in the Senate is pretty gross as it is. But again, I think the effects of that are actually even worse when you really stop and think about what it does to the minds of Americans moving forward in our democracy.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.